In 2004, Ascent Media in Burbank, California began work on remastering all 180 episodes of the classic American TV sitcom Seinfeld in high definition for Sony to use in syndication on American television. During the show's original run between 1989 and 1998, Seinfeld was shot on 35mm film, and it was framed for, edited, and broadcast in an aspect ratio of 4:3, or 1.33 to 1 as it is sometimes called. Although this ratio is often referred to as being square in shape, the reality is that a 4:3 image is 1.33 times as wide as it is tall. In other words, Seinfeld was originally framed for viewing on regular non-widescreen television sets, which were the standard at the time. In America, the show was broadcast during its initial run in its intended 4:3 ratio, and this is how the show is presented on DVD, restored from the original camera negatives. Some years after Seinfeld had finished its broadcast run, widescreen television sets became the standard screen type available to consumers. Widescreen televisions have an aspect ratio of 1.78 to 1, or 16:9. That is, the image is 1.78 times as wide as it is tall. If you were to watch Seinfeld on DVD in its original 4:3 aspect ratio on a 16:9 television, and providing your set was properly calibrated, the image would be pillar-boxed in order to maintain the correct image proportions. In effect, the unused areas of the screen would be filled with black pillars on either side of the image. No parts of the image are lost. The image is simply not as wide as the screen it is being viewed on, so the unused parts of the screen on either side of the image are left empty. In America, widescreen television broadcasts were not accepted as quickly as they had been in Europe, and as a result, some viewers found this pillar boxing of 4:3 material distracting. When the option was available on widescreen monitors, viewers could artificially stretch the image to fill their screen, although this was an ugly process which resulted in considerable picture distortion. As a compromise, some networks in the mid-2000s would sometimes air the 4:3 material in its correct aspect ratio whilst filling the pillar boxes with network branding, which was a far worse alternative to simply leaving the unused space black. Fast forward a few years to 2006, and reruns of Seinfeld were airing on American network television in high definition, with an image resolution more than double that of the standard definition DVD versions. The difference now was that the show was airing in 16:9 widescreen. The image now filled a widescreen television entirely with no pillar boxing. But how was this possible when the show was originally broadcast in 4:3? As previously discussed, Seinfeld was shot on 35mm film. Film is an analog medium with an image quality exceeding that of current 4K digital resolution, which means that new transfers of film source materials, like Seinfeld, can be mastered with incredible picture quality. This example image gives a rough approximation of what is captured by a fully exposed 35mm film frame. Everything within the frame is exposed, with some redundant space on all four sides to aid in the correct framing of a 4:3 image during post-production. The green frame shows an example of how a director and cinematographer may choose to frame this particular shot if it was part of a production. All four actors are nicely centered in the middle of the frame, and redundant space on the left and right is cropped out, never intended to be seen upon broadcast. So how does one go about creating a 16:9 version of this same shot? A crude method would involve simply cutting off, or cropping, the top and bottom sides of the 4:3 image, which results in a substantial loss of picture information. However, since the remastering company working on Seinfeld had access to the original camera negatives, they could reduce the amount of vertical cropping needed by opening up the previously unseen left and right sides of the image in order to create a 16:9 framing. In this example, some headroom is lost on top, as well as some information at the bottom of the frame which would have been visible on the original 4:3 broadcast. Conversely, new picture information is available on the left and right sides of the frame, but nothing important is visible since it was never seen, nor intended to be seen, when the show was framed for its original 4:3 broadcast ratio. However, this is just an example of how Seinfeld's 16:9 remastering works. To get an idea of how the process worked on an episode, we need to look at some actual footage from the show. This clip is from the Season 5 episode The Wife, and is the original 4:3 version as shot, edited and broadcast on March 17, 1994. On a 16:9 monitor, the image is pillar boxed to preserve the original aspect ratio of the footage.
Really? 25% off? Well, do I get that too?
No, just Meryl.
Why does she get it?
Because she's my wife. Yeah.
Matt.
You know, and I'll tell you, I'm really enjoying this marriage thing. You think about each other. You care about each other. It's wonderful. Plus, I love saying my wife. Once I started saying it, I couldn't stop. My wife this, my wife that. It's an amazing way to begin a sentence.
My wife has an inner ear infection.
See?
I like that. Hey, look, will you do me a favor? Will you take my quilt into the cleaners for me so I can get the discount too?
Oh, come on, we're gonna start doing this now? I can't be taking all your dry cleaning.
Come on,
eh?
just this one time. It's expensive.
All right.
Hey, Elaine.
Yeah.
What do you say if neither of us is married in 10 years, we get hitched?
Let's make it 50.
We're engaged. All right, I'm gonna get my quilt.
This is the same episode as aired on Fox, in its new 16:9 version.
Really? 25% off? Well, do I get that too?
No, just Meryl.
Why does she get it?
Because she's my wife. Yeah.
Matt.
You know, and I'll tell you, I'm really enjoying this marriage thing. You think about each other. You care about each other. It's wonderful. Plus, I love saying my wife. Once I started saying it, I couldn't stop. My wife this, my wife that. It's an amazing way to begin a sentence.
My wife has an inner ear infection.
See?
I like that. Hey, look, will you do me a favor? Will you take my quilt into the cleaners for me so I can get the discount too?
Oh, come on, we're gonna start doing this now? I can't be taking all your dry cleaning.
Come on,
eh?
just this one time. It's expensive.
All right.
Hey, Elaine.
Yeah.
What do you say if neither of us is married in 10 years, we get hitched?
Let's make it 50.
We're engaged. All right, I'm gonna get my quilt.
After viewing that clip, you may feel that the picture looks good in the widescreen version, but closer examination of individual shots reveals how the 16:9 remastering process has altered the original intentions of its creators. To begin with, the establishing shot of Jerry's apartment is now less centralized and situated much lower in the frame in the 16:9 version, with the windows pushed further towards the bottom of the frame. The following shot of Kramer and Jerry is also massively cropped in the 16:9 version, resulting in the elimination of Jerry's dining table and the sight of his right hand, with a somewhat incongruous cereal box peeking in at the bottom of the frame. This shot of Jerry and Kramer goes from being a medium 2 shot in the original 4:3 version to a close shot in the 16:9 version as a result of the extensive cropping at the bottom of the frame, with negligible extra picture information now seen on the left and right of the shot. A similar effect is visible in the following shot, where the two carefully arranged kettles at the bottom of the frame in the original 4:3 version are completely eliminated in the 16:9 version, which also showcases a more cramped composition of Jerry and Kramer. More compositional problems occur in the 16:9 version when Kramer and Elaine speak in the doorway of Jerry's apartment. Michael Richards, playing Kramer, is 6'3" and a foot taller than Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays Elaine. In the original 4:3 version, director Tom Sharones elected to frame this 2-shot in medium close-up, with Kramer's head at the very top of the frame and Elaine's midriff at the very bottom of the frame. However, in the 16:9 version, the shot is now more of a close shot with extensive cropping at the bottom edge that reduces the sight of Elaine to her head and neck only, making her look even shorter than she does in the original version. The shot is now cramped and weighted more in Kramer's favour, which has the effect of making him look more dominant within the mise-en-scène. Other shots, such as this establishing shot of the New York Health Club, also suffer due to reframing in the 16:9 version, and actually offer zero additional picture information on the sides of the frame. The original 4:3 version of the episode frames the name of the building nicely in the top third of the image, whilst the 16:9 version crops the image at the top and bottom so severely that some of the text is removed from the top of the frame. No extra image information is visible on either side of the 16:9 shot. It is worth mentioning that some shots in the 16:9 versions of Seinfeld work relatively well and look acceptable. This wide shot of Meryl and Jerry in the latter's apartment in the 4:3 version more or less retains its original composition in the 16:9 version, even though cropping has occurred on the top and bottom of the frame. However, there is very little extra information on the sides in the widescreen version. Similarly, this two-shot of Helen and Morty works well in both ratios. Both the 4:3 and 16:9 versions frame the couple nicely, with the 16:9 version retaining almost full visibility of the items on the counter at the expense of losing some sight of the furniture at the bottom of the frame. These are just some examples from one particular Seinfeld episode out of nearly 200, but the framing problems exclusive to the 16:9 widescreen version in this episode are apparent in the 16:9 versions of the other episodes too. Seinfeld was never intended to be shown in 16:9 widescreen, and thus the original 4:3 versions as seen on the DVDs represent the original intentions of the show's directors and production team, with the 16:9 broadcast versions merely representing a best guess as to how the show should be presented. It is rumoured that the total cost of remastering Seinfeld in 16:9 totaled around $5 million. As of early 2016, Seinfeld remains unavailable in high definition on Blu-ray. However, given the increasing trend of cropping 4:3 broadcasts to 16:9 in order to satisfy consumers who still do not fully understand aspect ratios and pillar boxing, it seems likely that any future home video versions of Seinfeld will be available only in cropped 16:9 versions. Fans of Seinfeld who wish to experience the show as it was always intended to be seen would be wise to hold on to their DVD versions in order to avoid the maltreatment of any future releases, unless of course the eventual Blu-ray releases contain the original 4:3 versions of the episodes.